All right, so get this. Today we're doing a deep dive on time preference.
Time preference.
Okay.
It sounds a little dry,
Yeah.
but trust me,
Yeah.
this one is fascinating.
Okay.
We are going to be diving into an interview that you sent to us with Saifedean Ammous,
Okay.
who wrote the Bitcoin Standard,
Right.
and our Bitcoin aficionado, Marty Bent.
Sounds familiar.
And of a
No.
really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Because it made me realize that this is something that is applicable,
Sure.
like way beyond
Yes.
just Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
So time preference.
Yeah.
Ammous kind of describes it as it's like a human tendency that we all have to favor immediate gratification over like a delayed reward.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And like the big
Sure.
driver is uncertainty about the future.
Makes sense.
Like, of course, if like,
I don't know.
if you're not sure what the future holds,
Yeah.
better to have it now.
But I'm not sure if I'll be alive in 100 years. So I'd rather eat this delicious meal today
100%.
than have the promise of a feast in 100 years.
I think we all,
Duh.
we all have that to some degree.
Yeah.
It's a spectrum, obviously.
Yeah.
But we all have some time preference.
So this isn't just some people are impatient.
It's not just being impulsive or anything.
Yeah.
We all have this.
It's human.
To some degree.
Yeah, it's part of being human.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, he says that this impacts every single decision we make.
Every single one.
Every single one.
He says in every single decision in life, your main opponent is your time preference.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
He even says your main opponent.
Yeah.
And I don't think he means that
right.
Your desires are bad.
Yeah.
It's just you have to battle against.
For sure. This urge.
That's right.
To choose the thing itself. That's going to feel good right now.
Yeah.
But if I blow all my money this weekend on this crazy trip, it's fun now. But Monday's going to suck.
Monday's going to be rough.
Yeah.
But the really interesting thing here is how he ties this to the monetary system.
What?
That's what I'm saying.
So you're telling me.
He's going beyond just individual behavior.
Okay.
He's saying the structure of our monetary system can actually influence
our collective time preference.
Our collective time preference. That's exactly right.
Okay. So money itself is a control.
It's like a control knob on our long-term thinking.
What? Okay. Tell me more about this because.
So he argues that hard money systems like the gold standard where the value of money remains relatively stable over time encourage a lower time preference.
Okay.
So people are more likely to save and invest when they have confidence that their money won't be significantly devalued by inflation.
So why save?
Right.
If the future.
If it's just going to be worth less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And he uses a great example from architecture to illustrate this point.
Okay.
He compares the McKim building at the Boston Public Library, built in 1895 during the gold standard era, with the Johnson building, constructed in the same city in 1971, well after the gold standard had been abandoned.
Okay, so we got two buildings in Boston.
Two buildings in Boston.
Okay.
Same city.
What's the big deal?
But very different buildings.
Yeah.
The McKim building is just gorgeous.
Okay.
It's craftsmanship, enduring quality. It's a gorgeous building.
Okay.
The Johnson building reflects a decline in architectural quality.
Really?
Yeah. It's much more focused on short-term cost-cutting measures.
So are you saying that
He is.
because money was more stable in the past,
Yes.
that people were more likely to think long-term, and that's reflected in the way they built things?
It's reflected in the way they built things, exactly.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just stop at buildings.
This is
He takes this idea,
this
connection between the hardness of money and our time preference.
Yeah.
And he's saying it affects everything.
Really?
From the food we eat.
Okay, this is blowing my mind.
The big idea.
Yeah. To our health.
Yeah.
Education.
Absolutely.
To even our barber, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not the barber specifically, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's just this underlying preference for immediate gratification.
Yeah.
It can manifest in ways we don't even realize.
Speaking of which, Ammous and Bent, they were talking about this correlation
What's that?
between the rise of fiat currency
Okay.
and the obesity epidemic.
Oh, wow.
Now, Ammous is very careful not to say one causes the other. So he's like, maybe this inflationary nature of fiat currency encourages spending over saving.
Right.
And so, like, cheap processed food...
Oh, I see what you're saying.
...become more prevalent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes you think twice about those chips.
Right. It really makes you think about all those choices
exactly
that we make day to day.
But it goes beyond food, too. Like, they were talking about education.
Absolutely.
And this was interesting to me.
Yeah.
They were saying that, like...
So their argument is that the current system,
okay,
which relies heavily on government loans and grants, incentivizes universities to prioritize expansion in research over actual student learning.
Oh, so it's like they're incentivized to take on more debt.
Yeah.
Just like the government.
It's very similar in that sense, right?
That's crazy. And then who ends up footing the bill?
Exactly. Who ends up footing the bill, right? And it all ties back
like
to this idea of time preference.
Yeah.
When the system encourages this kind of short-term thinking, this debt-fueled consumption, it's no surprise that the long-term health and sustainability of institutions, whether it's a university or an entire economy, becomes a secondary concern.
And then...
it's a big problem.
Like, we're not even done. Like,
we're just getting started.
Ammous then goes on to talk about...
he does.
...this argument that I've heard so many times.
Yeah, what's that?
That, like, government debt doesn't really matter.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one, too.
Because, like...
because we owe it to ourselves.
Yeah, we owe it to ourselves. So, like...
classic.
Who cares?
Right.
And he really, like, goes after this one.
He dismantles it.
Yeah, he's like...
pretty effectively.
There is no single ourselves.
Yeah.
There's no monolithic...
the burden of government debt
falls differently on different groups of people.
Different generations, even.
Yeah, so, like, the people making the decisions now... aren't the ones that are going to be paying for it.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
He says it's fundamentally unjust.
Yeah.
And it creates this dangerous illusion of prosperity.
Right.
In the present.
At the expense of the future.
At the expense of the future, exactly.
He even quotes Keynes.
Does he really?
Yeah. He says, we are today living in the future that Keynes warned us to not worry about because he was going to be dead in.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of wild.
That's a pretty powerful statement.
When you think about it.
It really is.
Like, for anyone listening who has kids.
If you have children.
Or is planning on having kids.
Or planning on it. Like, this
is a big deal.
A big deal.
This is your future we're talking about.
Yeah, like we are handling...
we, future generations.
A mountain of debt.
A mountain of debt.
For them to deal with.
That they had no say in.
And they had no say in it.
It's crazy.
And we're telling them, don't worry about it.
It's like a ticking time bomb.
Because we're not going to be here.
And we're just, like, handing it to them.
Exactly.
Here you go, little Timmy.
Good luck.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's like this debt-fueled approach.
It seems like
this high time preference.
His lifetime preference, yeah.
Is, like...
it's everywhere.
Seeping into every aspect of our lives.
It's in our economic policies.
Yeah.
It's in our education system.
Yeah.
It's even in our dietary habits.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Like, how do we break out of this?
How do we escape?
This cycle.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
It can feel that way for sure when you start to...
we're just like...
yeah, when you start to see it everywhere.
Stuck in this system
yeah.
that prioritizes the short term.
Yeah. It's hard to escape.
But we're left with these long-term consequences.
But, you know, awareness is the first step. Just recognizing these patterns is huge.
So where do we go from here?
Well, so that's where this gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because... Ammous and Bent, while they're critical of the current system, they do offer some solutions.
Here we go.
Yeah, they're not all doom and gloom. There is a way to kind of shift the balance back towards long-term thinking.
And
this is where I think
Bitcoin
comes into play.
Okay.
Now, before we talk about Bitcoin specifically, it's important to understand that Ammous's argument is much bigger than that.
Okay.
It's not just about...
this isn't like a Bitcoin ad.
This is not a Bitcoin ad.
Okay.
This is about the principles of sound money.
Okay.
And how that can impact time preference.
So even if I'm like, I don't know, I don't think Bitcoin's... for me...
sure.
There's still something here.
There's still a lot here.
For me to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what he suggests is a return to a system where money is a reliable store of value.
Okay.
Where saving is incentivized.
Yeah.
Not spending.
Overspending.
Where you're not constantly battling inflation.
So instead of thinking about money as something that's like always losing value.
Like a hot potato.
Yeah.
Get it out of your hands as quickly as possible.
What if it was something that like...
What if it appreciated?
Appreciated.
Yeah.
Over time.
That changes things.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so...
It's a very different way of thinking about the world.
So what would that look like?
What would that world look like?
I
mean, imagine people saving more for the future.
Okay.
Investing in their education. Their long-term health.
Yeah.
Building businesses that are designed to last.
Building things to last.
Yeah, for generations.
That sounds...
It sounds pretty good.
Kind of utopian.
It does sound a little utopian.
Like, are we being realistic here?
No, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
These are deeply ingrained behaviors.
Right, yeah.
Systems that have been in place for decades.
Right.
But it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing how the current system influences our choices.
Right.
So that we can make different ones.
So you're saying if we're aware of these forces...
If we're aware of it...
We can start to maybe make...
We can start to...
Different choices?
Think different choices.
Like, we have more agency than we think.
We're not just robots.
Yeah.
We have the ability to step back and say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I don't have to just go along with this.
This has been...
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been empowering.
Right.
This whole conversation.
Yeah.
It's really eye-opening to think about, like...
It makes you...
Time preference.
Rethink everything, doesn't it?
Like this big thing that impacts...
It's the lens through which we can view...
So many.
All of these problems.
Yeah.
In a new light.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here, what's like the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
I want them to know that their choices matter.
Okay.
Like every decision we make, even the small ones.
Yeah.
It's like a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
So it's about recognizing that we actually do have agency.
We do.
And that these small choices...
Even small shifts.
They make a difference.
It can have a ripple effect.
So next time I'm like...
Next time you're about to...
Faced with a choice.
Yeah. Are you prioritizing instant gratification or are you playing the long game?
Yeah.
Ask yourself that question.
I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Become the architects of our future.
Exactly. Yes. Well said. That's what we're all trying to do, right?
Yeah. Until next time.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.